Origin by Black-Majestic. Chapter 1. To this day, people are talking about the legend of Black-Majestic, who is living an exhilarated life full of incredible stories that still divide opinions. I've asked around a few people who knew Black-Majestic. You can do some reading or so on and you'll get it. I'll get straight into it. Now, I hope I could do this story some justice. Now, in Black-Majestic's background, born in 1983, he grew up in the east of Anglia, which is in the east of England. Although he would go on to be known as a formidable force, he didn't start out like that. As the quietest child, he was well known and troublesome. He was badly bullied but had quite a shy personality, but not so timid nature for the times. Some would say a young male wandering the streets with only a handful of friends and counterparts. And it said he didn't like being at home with his family, who was reportedly a violent and destructive unit. Quite often, Bra'd be seen on and off paperwork, having beatings and in and out of trouble within his home life. And at once he even admitted himself that it wasn't a perfect environment for a child who was to be so keen as an underground rising star, breaking several boundaries within his life. When wandering the streets, he would be a target for all the police within his surrounding area, vesting in England, constantly being beaten up, tormented and harassed. When he was under 12 years old, they'd call antisocial because he couldn't stick to one task or find it very hard to complete everyday tasks within a working community. But in his late teens, he started to turn the tables. And when he said, at times he could be the bully himself at Act 10, his arrest was theft of a schoolboy's clothes and trainers from a leisure center clothes to wear where he lived with his family, making the child walk home with no thought of the clothes the boy had to wear on the way home. He and his friends in the children's home from 13 onwards was supposed to be the toughest and most feared youths in there at the cost of the community. When he got out at leaving age, they sent him to move into his own chateau within a small town not so far from the area he became. Because he was getting in too much trouble in his local area, he tended to move about a lot, which was a bit of a maverick. He didn't really have a lot of street fights but was into the sordid side of street crimes, which was sure to toughen him up. Although he did like the discipline of street fighting, telling the Republic that to approach him with fights with their hands by their waist and punches from the hip, there was always a 9mm nearby with the odd access to a nuke or two from his father's discipline. So people couldn't see the iron punch coming. It was usually about the molly. He couldn't keep out of trouble within any community until his late teens. He went on the warpath at age 19 when he decided to even life's score with a brick to a crack house where he used to live and walking away after a night of domestic terrorism. There was certainly flashbacks of whoever gave him a hard time as a child. By the time he was at magnitude status, he had a big name from the Union and is well on the way to establishing himself as an underground superstar within the trap and hip-hop union. When he took on light work by Chinatown contacts within the United Kingdom umbrella, his cartel was without a doubt the hardest in the area. But the credit and respect being offered wasn't the one to lock the doors and windows in the town but welcome and don't touch him due to a personal discrepancy about idle street chit-chat. And for being this young and upcoming rising star, he's heard to have the fights won under his belt. He knocked them out and broke records for his short work. After this, every seasoned hard man knew about the deeds and made a way for him. Chapter 2. Although he has never been to prison due to the subliminal rules of the code, he might as well have had a second bed at the police station where he was constantly being convicted for all sorts of scallywag behavior. When he was 32 years old at the Royal Dragon Motel, Chinatown, London, he had his first high-grade criminal rendezvous with a lovely Russian girl whose intention was taxing clients of a female friend who was a prostitute and local area connection. The two of these would do this together. She would lay still in a secluded place while the girl would restore the humanity of man. Most of them would want them to go to the police because of the embarrassment of it all. Perhaps motivated by the mental scores and insecurities due to the violent bullying he suffered as a child, Black-Majestic was on a warpath to prove he had the hardest affiliation around. He would get public transport to different towns around Anglia and London, walk up the territory and tell them who and why the gang-related affiliation, any trouble, and the buzzer used to sound before knocking them unconscious to enhance his and their reputation. He would also normally only wear black as a course of sentimental value when out clubbing. A would-be assassination was bound to take effect, so he stayed out of the wrong side of the bar and ended up avoiding getting hit by the attacks. His feud with the locals on a constant basis was to show by having to escalate the problems to heal the problems. When Black-Majestic started making his music, nobody even listened to the element, let alone buy it. Even though most people said they would help him out, Black-Majestic was always accompanied by friends on the scallywag side of things where they all declared no mercy and refused to cozy the deal of giving up after insult after upset. It was said beware when they leave something always follows, hence the time when he was 19 years of age trouble began and truth set in and began to set about the estate, knocking more than 6 of them out single-handedly and telling them all he wanted to do is not mess with the wrong people. Truth be have it, people have a tendency that behavior once and twice. Behold, there was a fight that night, and when the crowd dispersed the trouble started. Chapter 3. Dark Underground was the first ever track made by Black-Majestic, but at that time it was released by an artist called DOA, meaning Dead or Alive, a bad man name. I know it was released under the record label based at City Road, London under the name DTE Records Limited, meaning Deep Time Entity Records. The track should have been one of the biggest hits in the London, Birmingham area due to the sonotype dynamics put together within it. The B-side was called Cyclone B, a proper dub plate at first turned single. Both sides were about 9 minutes long. The DVD was made but never released. It was